Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on an incredibly inspiring and honestly super practical journey based on the transformative work of clinical psychologist Gillian Butler. We're going to break down her proven, tested strategies for overcoming social anxiety and shyness. If you have ever felt held back by self-doubt or just that heavy feeling of inner isolation, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to systematically dismantle those invisible barriers together so you can reclaim your social freedom. So let's be completely honest for a second. Have you ever stepped into a room full of strangers and felt your heart just instantly start hammering in your chest? Your hands get clammy, you start sweating, and your mind just literally freezes up. Or, maybe you were in a meeting, you had this brilliant idea, but a sudden inner voice just whispered that everyone was going to judge you if you spoke up. Millions of people carry this invisible burden every single day. It's this intense feeling of a giant spotlight exposing your every flaw. It's painful, and it is a very real lived experience. But here is the good news, and really this is our core thesis for today. This overwhelming fear, it is not a permanent flaw in your character. Social anxiety is simply a learned pattern of thinking and behaving. And the beauty of that is, because it's learned, it can absolutely be unlearned. It is not an inescapable lifetime trap. Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, shyness versus social anxiety. Now, we really need to differentiate between these two because they aren't the same thing. Shyness is just a natural personality tendency. It's that completely normal feeling of caution or maybe a little awkwardness and self-consciousness we all get in new situations. Social anxiety, on the flip side, is a whole different beast. It's an overwhelming, totally disruptive fear of negative evaluation. It's this deep-seated, paralyzing worry of looking foolish or being rejected that actually stops you from pursuing your personal goals or sharing your ideas at work. Basically, it stops you from living your life. Moving on to Section 2, the vicious cycle of fear. Let's walk through this biological loop together to see exactly how we get stuck. Step 1. You anticipate a social situation, like, say, a party. Your brain instantly evaluates it as a threat. That triggers Step 2, anxious, totally negative thoughts about yourself, which rapidly leads to Step 3, the physical symptoms, the rapid heartbeat, the blushing. Now, to cope, you jump to Step 4, safety behaviors. You avoid eye contact, you try to hide in the corner, or you just grip your drink super tightly so nobody sees your hand shaking. But here's the ultimate trap, Step 5. Those safety behaviors send a false signal to your brain that the party was a literal physical danger and you barely survived it. Because you hid, your fear is reinforced, and that anxiety just grows stronger for the next time. To borrow a really powerful phrase from our source material, your anxiety is essentially a biological self-protection mechanism run amok. Whether it comes from a natural biological temperament or maybe an early painful moment of humiliation, your brain just started associating social situations with danger to protect you from pain. It's an ancient fight or flight response that's just misfiring. It is absolutely not a personal failure. All right, Section 3, escaping your mental traps. You see, when anxiety strikes, your mind basically turns into this incredibly biased judge. It filters out everything positive and sets these nasty little mental traps. First, there's mind reading, where you assume with zero proof that people are judging you. Then, there's fortune telling, where your brain predicts a total disaster before you've even left your house. We can be pretty dramatic in our own heads, right? Then we have catastrophic thinking, which tricks you into believing one tiny conversational slip-up is going to ruin your entire reputation forever. And finally, emotional reasoning, assuming that just because you feel anxious, you must actually be bombing the interaction. We're literally predicting disasters based entirely on our own feelings. So the crucial point is, how do we counter this? You have to start treating your thoughts as hypotheses, not absolute facts. You challenge these traps by asking objective, real-world questions. Ask yourself, okay, what is the actual tangible evidence for this worry? What is the absolute worst thing that could realistically happen here? Questioning your automatic thoughts, like a scientist, is the very first step to loosening the grip of that social fear. Which perfectly brings us to Section 4, practicing safe behavioral experiments. Now, changing your thoughts is a great start, but true transformation happens in the real world. This is the science of action. We call these behavioral experiments. This means transforming your everyday social interactions into mini scientific tests to gather actual data rather than just trying to survive the night. Let's say you're convinced that pausing to find your words will make people laugh at you. Well, your experiment is to deliberately pause during a casual chat and just observe how people actually react. You're going to quickly discover that the catastrophe you pictured just doesn't happen. You are giving your brain undeniable real-world proof that the environment is completely safe. Look, we have a clear choice in how we react to fear. The most natural human response to anxiety is avoidance. Staying home from the party gives you immediate relief, sure. But the long-term price is devastating because it reinforces that deep-down belief that you just can't handle social situations. The alternative is exposure. This is the incredibly empowering process of gradually and systematically facing those feared scenarios. You start with small challenges and you progressively build your long-term confidence. It's a game changer. Let's look at Section 5, Shifting Your Mental Spotlight. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is understanding where our attention actually goes. When you walk into a room, your attention almost always turns inward. You shine this massive internal spotlight on your pounding heart, or your dry mouth, or your warm cheeks. And because you are hyper-focusing on them, these sensations feel completely magnified, and you mistakenly assume everyone else in the room can see them just as clearly. This intense inward focus eats up all your working memory. That's exactly why it is so hard to follow the conversation or think of what to say next. Your brain is just too busy watching itself. So, the solution? You literally flip the switch. You have to consciously shift to the external spotlight. Deliberately focus your full sensory attention on the outside world. Look closely at the room around you. Listen super intently to the actual words the other person is saying. Try to notice the exact color of their eyes. Listen for the background music. The magic here is that when you shift your focus outward, your self-consciousness naturally fades, your anxiety drops, and you can actually interact fluidly. And by turning your spotlight outward, you're going to find you naturally start falling into these core habits. You know, a lot of people worry they just lack basic social skills, but honestly, anxiety is usually just masking the skills you already have. You'll start active listening, which means focusing on understanding them, not just planning your next witty remark. You'll ask open-ended questions. How? What? Why? To keep the flow going. You'll naturally use warm eye contact and an open posture. And remember, interaction is a two-way street. You don't have to carry the whole conversation by yourself. Now, of course, those physical symptoms might still pop up. The trembling, the sweating, it happens. When your brain perceives a threat, it floods your body with adrenaline. The key here is just not to panic. Realize that what feels like a massive glowing red blush to you is usually barely even noticeable to anyone else. When you feel that rush, try some slow, deep diaphragm breathing. Slowing down your exhale physically triggers your parasympathetic nervous system. It's basically sending an immediate all-clear signal to your brain. Just welcome those physical sensations as harmless bodily energy. As you start applying these tools, as you challenge those mental traps, run your behavioral experiments, and shift your spotlight outward, please remember this vital truth. Progress is not a straight line. There are going to be days when old fears resurface. When setbacks happen, do not fall into harsh self-criticism. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the exact same kindness you would give a good friend who is learning a difficult new skill. Celebrate every single small victory. Because every time you speak up or test a fear, you are physically rewiring your brain for courage. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important thought for this explainer. What would you do today if you knew the spotlight wasn't real? Because the absolute truth is, it isn't. The world is not some intimidating obstacle course just waiting to judge you. It's a place of connection, of opportunity. You have the power to systematically dismantle this social fear. So take that first step. Drop your safety behaviors. Step out of isolation and into a life of truly meaningful connection. Thank you so much for joining me today. And hey, I challenge you to go out and run a behavioral experiment of your own right now.